No one's going to complain about a win over the Steelers. Lance Reisland is here to break it down. What went right? What went wrong for the Browns? How did they get the job done? We'll talk about all of that and more on another episode of the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. It was another start for Shedeur Sanders, his sixth consecutive start. And he once again had some good moments, once again had some bad moments. What did Lance Reisland notice? What does it mean for his status as the Browns quarterback this season and maybe even next? Plus, the Browns defense got back on track, or was it more about the Steelers trying to keep Myles Garrett from getting the sack record? And could that win actually be a momentum builder for next season? We'll get into all that and more. I do want to thank you for being on every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making this your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, and it's all thanks to you. Let's not waste too much time here, Lance. We'll break down a couple plays here in just a second, but another start for Shedeur Sanders and 6 starts into this thing. What stands out the most from his game? Where has he grown the most? And what are the things that you're noticing and feel like he still has some room to improve with one game sort of to go here in at least the 2025 stretch of his tenure?
Well, I think he's done a great job, first of all, with improvement week to week. So footwork has gotten better. Poise has gotten better. If you look at like a throw, like one of my favorite throws was early in the drive, early in the game to Bates, that 19-yard throw to Bates. And what I liked about that was when you go back, and I tweeted that out earlier today, if you go back, Rocket Sanders has a great blitz pickup, but his feet weren't panicked. They weren't frantic. And 5-6 weeks ago, he would have bailed. He may have reversed out, bailed. He just kind of stepped to his left and then moved to his right, threw a great ball to Bates. So that's been super, super impressive. Just his poise, the ability to get to second, third progressions. He's very coachable, and you could tell he's very coachable because of the things he's doing. And I say this again, he's winning with Kevin and with Tommy Rees. They're doing a great job of pushing him, and he's being very, very coachable because the things he struggled with, he's doing better. Now, the thing that's got to improve, he's got to protect the football a little bit more, and he's got to not have the catastrophic play. He's got to not have the Herberg that should have been a pick six and then the jump ball to Judy, right? He's got to make sure he eliminates those. And because the rest of his game has been so good, if you take those couple plays away, pretty outstanding start against a defense that had to win. And that's what I loved about the Ravens winning on Saturday is that he got a true look. Coverages, fronts, blitzes. He played well against a good defense that historically is good in those big type of games.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think you highlight a lot of what we've seen him sort of improve on. And there's a bigger question here that we'll get to sort of in the final segment, Lance, just of what you would do in terms of, giving Shedeur an opportunity next season and what that kind of looks like. But we'll come back to that because I do want to dive into a few plays here with you, like we always tend to do on these Tuesday conversations. And I think the rightful place to start, of course, is with his pretty impressive touchdown throw on the opening drive of the game to Harold Fannin Jr., who obviously over the last several weeks has become his kind of go-to target, his favorite target here. How did this play sort of develop, and what did you what did Shedeur sort of pick up on and notice as he made this throw and got the Browns on the board on the opening drive of the game?
Well, see the corner that I have highlighted there, and once again, names don't even matter. It's just the idea of what a quarterback sees, and sometimes if it's an elite corner, obviously you have to stay away, do certain things. But let's just assume this is Samuel, but it doesn't really matter. It's just what he sees, and so pre-snap. They actually take Fannin they move him from the left all the way over to the right. It tells him zone, but he doesn't really know what type of zone. Now, if you look at Ramsey there, he kind of looks like this to me, looks like a cover 3 kind of look, right? Safety's in the middle of the field. They got 5 down linemen. It looks like they're going to play kind of like a 5-2 cover 3 look, but they don't. And if you actually look at the defensive end, Sawyer there, he's actually going to become the flat defender, and they're going to rotate the entire coverage, and they're going to go from cover 3 or cover 1 or 1 high hat to 2 high hats. And the key for Sanders is that he's got to read that corner, and then he's got to decide where the safety help's coming from. So if you go to the next slide. So So this is what it looks like after the snap. So you can see the defensive end has dropped. The defensive line is going to all angle to their right to make sure they're balanced in their front. You can see that Ramsey dropped down to the hook curl area. They got the backers in the hook curl hook area. And then Sawyer drops to that weak side flat, to the boundary flat. And you got Asante Samuel over here. And then you have the safety. And the safety there, 29, he's got to get over top. So now, simple read for Shedeur. Now, if it was cover 3, he'd automatically hit Jeudy on the out route. But because it's cover 2, that corner's going to squat. And he's got to squeeze it in there before that safety gets over there. So if you look at the next slide, he does a really nice job. So it starts with his footwork is outstanding. His knowledge pre-snap to post-snap. Again, so 2 things you need to work on, right? His footwork, his pre-snap to post-snap. Footwork good, pre-snap. Pre-snap picture told me cover 3, 1 hi-hat, post-snap. Does not confirm that. Now it's cover 2. Now I got to read that corner. If that corner squats, I'm going to throw the corner route to Fannin over top. If that corner bails, I'm going to hit Jerry Jeudy on the out. Play is over. Corner squats just enough. He squeezes in. Now, once again, everybody says, it's the idea of it wasn't a great throw. It wasn't a great throw. But in the course of a game, that's why we got to get to the point where we're not breaking down every single play. Because in the course of a game, sometimes the receiver helps out the quarterback. Sometimes the quarterback helps out the receiver. Sometimes pass protection isn't there. This is a team game, especially on offense. And even though the quarterback's the biggest piece of the pie, he's just a piece of the pie. So great adjustment by Fannin, great catch. And the ball was good enough, and he gave him an opportunity to go get it. So really good play by Fannin, good read by Sanders, good delivery, and the Browns scored a touchdown on it.
Yeah, I thought it was a weird sort of throw. It felt like it hung up there for a while. And I was surprised Kyle Duggar didn't try to make a bigger play on the ball in terms of trying to get an interception there, because I thought it kind of hung up there. But I thought the end of the play and the result obviously was incredible. And Harold Fannin, as great as he's been, one of the best catches he's made this season, just kind of adjusting back to the football to bring that one in. And that's just 2 guys developing that chemistry, I think, and being on the same page. But yeah, I think you're right about like the execution of the play and everything was there. The throw was a little weird, but hey, like you said, sometimes in the heat of a game, things work out for you, and that one obviously did in a positive way. Let's go to this next play. This was a throw he made, I think, early on in this game as well, first half, to Jerry Jeudy. And I think this continued to sort of show some of the progress he's making in seeing things and going through his progressions as plays develop.
Once again, they're going to give you a weird look here. They got a too high safety look, but who are the flat defenders and who are the underneath defenders? So right now, he probably knows that it's going to be a simulated pressure, and you're going to see the guy highlighted, 51, and you have 41, Peyton Wilson. Those 2 guys are actually going to drop. And what they're going to do is it's still going to be a zone coverage, but his job is to find who are you going to be reading. And they're going to run a classic high-low that Kevin and Tommy and all NFL coaches love to run, where they're going to run a low and then a high behind it, and they're simply going to read the linebacker. But the thing that Shedeur has to do on this one is he has to determine where is that low. So the last time where he's going to throw, that was Ramsey dropping down in that hook curl area. Now the hook curl area person is going to come from the line of scrimmage. It's actually going to be a linebacker. It's going to be Harrison. So he's going to actually drop off the line of scrimmage, and Peyton Wilson, if you go to the next slide, you can see how they drop. Now, his job as that linebacker drops, they're going to run the Malachi is going to run that little, we used to call the hunt route. You're going to hunt for the linebacker and basically make him cover you so you can hit the dig behind it. Once again, though, you got to time it right, and you got to hit it inside the linebacker there to his left. So you see the window, and that's a big window in the NFL, but it's not very big. This is just a classic high-low. Now, he could also work on the other side. And the thing that's interesting on the other side is that this is a very similar play that they scored the touchdown on. Now, Fannin, he's in a different spot. He's actually going to run the low part of the smash concept, and Isaiah Bond is running the high part of the smash concept. So it's the same similar kind of concept. So on one side, if he gets cover 2, he can work Bond, but he gets like a cover 4 look, a soft cover 4 or quarters look. So he's going to work the high-low to the short side here with Jeudy running the dig behind the hunt route for Malachi Corley. Really good timing. He hit a bunch of these. Once again, rhythm, pace, on time, hips, weight transfer, all that good stuff that gets me excited as a quarterback coach. It was all there, and I loved it. So he did a bunch of these, and this was really impressive stuff with his footwork and his delivery.
Yeah, again, I think I think you speak to just the progressions that he's continuing to make and how he's seeing things, and both these plays certainly highlight that. And you talked earlier about, the interceptions and the near interception to Herbig and the one that obviously was picked off, and how there still continues to sort of be some of those ups and downs and those rookie mistakes, and that's okay. But with all that in mind, I do want to come back to this and ask your thoughts on where you sort of stand with Shedeur Sanders and how the Browns should maybe handle him moving forward in the future. We'll get to that, but we do need to get to the defensive side of the football, because Lance, I thought the Browns defense bounced back in a major way this week, obviously, and I think there's some reasons for that. We'll highlight a couple plays on the defensive side of things, why the defense has looked so good this week and was able to stop the run finally again. All that and more coming your way next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's be real, no one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR, so you can just focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote, friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payrolls run for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you time every single week. And knowing you can read certified HR experts anytime, or you can reach, certified HR experts anytime, gives you real peace of mind as well. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. Back out of here with Lance Reisland on the Locked On Browns podcast. And Lance, listen, I thought the defense really bounced back in a major way this week. There was a lot said post-game about the Steelers' offensive game plan, and we're going to highlight a couple plays here, of course, but I wonder, did you subscribe to the same belief that it felt like Pittsburgh was just so overly concerned with Myles Garrett and so overly concerned with, we don't want to let him get the sack record and make that like a storyline today, that they kind of let that dictate how they were going to conduct their offense, and that, you saw in spurts, especially at the end of the half and the end of the game, if they had just tried to push the ball down the field, there probably were some opportunities to do that, but they waited too long to sort of do those things because they were so worried about Myles. Did you feel like that was the case?
I couldn't disagree more. I've actually been asked this a bunch. Here's the thing as an offense coordinator, you better not. What they do is, I thought they had a great plan for Myles, and they kept Myles out of the game. And what they lacked is they took a couple of deep shots, and even the one they hit that we'll go over, that was just an outstanding throw, but a throw you're going to make 1 out of 80, 90, 100 times maybe. Had to be I'm Delpit's right there kind of deal. So no, I think they did a great job of chipping Myles, running at Myles, screening Myles, booting away from Myles, making sure that they had extra hat. They chipped them every time. Their attention to detail was outstanding. I don't think, as an offensive coordinator, I always told myself, I can't let the best guy beat me. And to say that, I just didn't see it that way. Now, I can see where people think that, but I just didn't think that. I thought that they had a great plan for Myles, and they were going to make somebody else beat them, and they didn't have enough weapons.
And somebody else did, I guess, essentially. Somebody else did beat them.
So, I don't believe that. I thought they had a great plan, and they executed it, and they just didn't make enough plays. He had some misses. There's a number of misses, even on the last play of the game. There's an open receiver in the middle of the field. He just decided to go with the fade. So there were some opportunities there. He was not hitting them. It's not the same, it's hard to look at, but this is not this. I watched a lot of film last week. It's not the same Aaron Rodgers of 10, 12 years ago. It's just not. And it's hard not to think like that, but that's the reality of it.
Well, I think to your point too, they didn't make enough plays situationally. It felt like they were just a disaster in that game. They in the key spots in games, 4th and 1, you throw a fade to the end zone to Scotty Miller. It's not like you had DK Metcalf out there. He was obviously out for this game. It just seemed weird, some of the decision making in certain spots, and a lot of that was on Aaron Rodgers specifically. But I agree with you in the sense that they didn't make enough plays, but I just thought it was interesting because obviously even Miles kind of echoed those sentiments that he felt like they were too worried about him. But I like that you have a different perspective on it. Let's break down a couple plays here on the defensive side of things and what you sort of noticed about how the Browns played this thing and what the Steelers kind of brought to the table. Here's the first one you got for us.
All right, so this is actually from the first matchup. And one of the reasons I put this up here is because the first matchup, the Browns struggled with communication. It was early in Campbell's tenure here in Cleveland. And what was happening in a lot of these switches where one strong becomes too strong and too strong goes to 1 week, or all these switches. And there's kind of a general rule. And really, corners want to bump to corners or they want to run with. But you never want to bump like a receiver to a linebacker, a receiver to a safety. And that ends up happening a lot, especially when you're new, because you're not really sure of who's in charge of what. Different guys have different philosophies. But Schwartz tries to win with matchups, and he wants to make sure that his good DBs are on the fast receivers. So in this first matchup, this is the first play of the game. If you go to the next slide, basically what they did is that they just did a little short motion, and 1 and 2 strong switched. Campbell actually stayed where he thought he was going to because he was in charge of 1 strong, and then no one covered 2 strong, which was Washington on the corner route, which just ended up being a levels concept. But this is all communication. And the reason why is because 4 or 5 times in this game where the Steelers ran different types of motions to try to change with the strength or the numbers game, I like to say, the Browns communicated beautifully and picked it up, and then everybody was matched up appropriately. So really nice job by the Browns in this game. Really, there's really no clips that this will show you or a diagram that will show you. But if you think about the Browns always made sure they had the right coverage on the right guys. Delpit was on tight ends and backs. Campbell and Ward were on receivers, except linebackers were on backs and tight ends. So you get the idea. They didn't get caught in mismatches because of motion. They dictated, not the offense.
Yeah, listen, I think you noticed in this game, especially with Campbell, you highlighted him from the first matchup. I thought he had some really big plays and moments in this game, and you've continued to see him just kind of grow into his role. You know, I one of the sort of silver linings to this season, Lance, I think, has been the fact that he and Denzel, they could be like the maybe the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Like they've been really, really solid together opposite each other. And I'm excited to see sort of that relationship grow and develop as time goes on here. Let's go to the second play that you sort of put out here. And this was a seam route that the Steelers completed. I believe it was to Freiermuth. What did you notice on this play?
Well, if you look at the last drive, they got the ball back, and once again, I said this, and people have their different thoughts, and I agree. But the defense is on the field to win the game. You take that every time. Going back all the way back to the Vikings game, you take that every single time with this defense. So what ended up happening here is they actually moved Miles down inside, so Gainwell came back in the backfield because they didn't have to double on the edge. So you can see everybody's got a man. So we used to call this 2-man. So everybody is going to be in man coverage. It's okay if the guy gets on top of you or kind of like runs by you because you have help over top. So it's some teams do it a little differently. Campbell actually does a little bit differently than the other guys. This is not a coverage they've been in a ton. This is kind of a prevent, but not quite a prevent, right? So they got dime personnel in the game, 1 linebacker, multiple DBs, and you can see from the outside in, 1 strong, 2 strong, 3 strong is Freiermuth. He's the star. He's covered by Delpit. And then you see over on the 1 week, and then the back would either be 4 strong if he went to the right, or he'd be 2 weak if he went to the left. But it doesn't matter because Schwetzinger's got him because they're in dime. Schwetzinger's got him no matter what. If they were a nickel, one backer would have him to the right, Schwetzinger would have him to the left. Now they got behind them, they got the guys, they're the cover guys, and you can see I kind of circled kind of the area. They got to keep everybody in front. So you got Jenkins to the right, you got Hickman to the left. And what ends up happening is that they're going to run a vertical. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is a absolute incredible throw. So it's kind of the end of the route. You can see everybody's covered. And at the top of the route, Delpit does a nice job of almost forcing Freiermuth to run into him. And he does a nice job with his feet, nice job with his hands. Everybody's covered, including Freiermuth. When this ball is released by Aaron Rodgers, there is absolutely zero window. Now, the only thing that could have happened is Jenkins could have been a little bit over top, but it's hard to be over top because I think he's helping more on Webb, who at too strong. And I think he was probably told, make sure we don't let, our new guy in there alone in a situation to win the game. So he got a lot of depth, which I think is a good move by him. But what it did is it opened up the middle of the field. But this took an absolute Hall of Fame throw to get this here. Right?
This was like vintage Aaron Rodgers. You said he's not the same guy from 10 years ago, but every now and then he pulls one out. This was one of them for sure.
Yeah, this was just arm talent, timing, and just like Freiermuth had no other option but to catch it. So just really good defense. And this is one of those things we talk about when you're a man coverage team. Once in a while, you're going to get beat on this kind of stuff. That's why your offense has to do their part. The defense played incredibly all year. They'll play very well again this week. The offense has got to do their part. The good thing about this defense is pretty much everybody's back, and then you go out and get a couple more pieces, in my opinion. So, again, just man coverage. You got beat here. Took a great throw, Hall of Fame throw, great catch by Freiermuth, but they got him on the ground. And that was the selling point for me is that Hickman, Jenkins, they got him on the ground, kept him out of the end zone, and the Browns end up keeping them out of the end zone, again, by throwing at Ward 3 times in a row, which made no sense to me.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I was going to ask you real quick, what did you think about just Carson Schlesinger and the fact that, listen, like he was playing through something. Clearly, the ankle was bothering him, and how impressed have you been by him just this season to see him kind of gut out a game like that, play every snap despite having the injury situation that he was dealing with?
Well, he's a super tough guy, and sometimes you have to protect those kind of guys from themselves because they'll go out there and play. And in a league that, everybody, when they get banged up at all, they come out. I like the fact that he didn't come out. And if he wasn't an injury that is going to get worse, now I heard it was ankle or a thigh bruise. I'll talk to some people tomorrow to kind of see where he's at. I always try to check on injuries on Tuesday because usually you guys aren't down there. So I'll check with some people, who I work with, kind of see what's going on there. But his toughness, he's been such a great player all year. He tackles well. He's the control he has and the controlled chaos he plays with. There's not enough superlatives about Carson Schlesinger. He's an anchor of this defense. He's played at an all-pro level. A lot of these guys have. Think about how bad this offense and special teams have been, and they still have been in a bunch of games. There's a very, very, as bad as this offense has been, you can get 3 or 4 more wins easy if because of this defense, if they just make a couple more plays on one side of the ball or one phase of the game. So once again, he's been the leader of the pack. The idea of him coming back and, obviously first and foremost, you wish about JOK to be healthy. Yeah. But then you just let him, let him play like just a freak because he's a freak athlete. And, you go out and I told everybody, if, you got the 6th pick in the draft and Caleb Downs is there. Oh my goodness, I know you need offense, but man, and then you get Emerson back, and then Campbell and Emerson, got 2 big guys. One of them can play in the slot. And then you get Malik Collins back. I mean, you're talking on paper, historical type defense of players. So, I think he's been incredible. And it goes to show you how some guys grow and get better because I did not have Carson Schlesinger nearly as high as I should have going into the draft. So good for that young man. Can't wait to see him next year when he's ready to roll from the start.
Well, we're going to have Lance put his GM hat on coming up next and decipher what he would do as far as the Browns quarterback situation is concerned. Would he lean into Shedeur Sanders as the guy next year? Would he explore other options? Is trading up something he would think about? We'll get Lance's thoughts on that, plus what this win maybe means for Kevin Stefanski's future here in Cleveland. All that and more coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. We've got bowl games. We've got big basketball matchups. We've got playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. Lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes that whole process smooth and intuitive. Plus, the new Stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on a quarterback's passing yards, touchdowns, or rushing yards. Plus, If one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot feature will save your lineup from a loss. Man, do I wish other apps had that feature. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Final segment here with our guy Lance Reisland on a Tuesday. And Lance, I gave you a little bit of a break there to think through how you're going to answer this, because it is kind of the big debate here, especially with the Browns winning this football game and dropping in the draft order. Finding that franchise quarterback at the top of the order is not going to be so simple now, especially unless they want to trade up and whatever that could potentially look like. But you take yourself sort of out of the mix potentially for one of these top two quarterbacks, assuming, it's Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore who end up coming out. They have a whole playoff to still get through before we really see the end result of that. But with that in mind, what do you think the Browns should do when it comes to Shedeur Sanders? Like, do you think we've seen enough at this point to say they should lean into him being their guy next year? Should it be him as part of a competition for the starting job next year? He didn't really get a true competition, I don't think, for the job this year. So maybe that's, he's now in the mix for that conversation. Are you exploring the veteran market? Are you still, maybe bullish on they should consider trading up and getting one of these guys if they come out? Where do you sort of think what direction would you kind of go if you were running the Browns in terms of trying to figure out this quarterback spot, and where does Shedeur Sanders fit in that?
Well, I'll say this to start, and I want to make sure that I tell everybody this. It's very important that the Browns won this game. If the idea that they won and it was a bad thing, you have to start thinking differently, because that's a culture ruiner. If you can't say to people coming into your organization that we lose to get picks. You'll never win. You'll never ever win at a high level. So that's the first thing. Now, what I would do is that, first of all, I think Dillon Gabriel is a heck of a quarterback as well. So I think Shedeur Sanders has been very, very good. I think he's shown you a lot. But I will say that I do not think Mendoza, and once again, I'm early. So as you and I talk all winter and I get, 10, 12, 15 games into these guys, I'll know more or at least have my opinion. But I don't think Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore are Andrew Luck or John Elway type guys, right? Guys who are absolutely off the charts and seem like no-brainers. Now, I could be wrong, but I just don't see it right now on film. So that being said, I don't think a quarterback can come in right now unless it's John Elway or Andrew Luck and change it more than Shedeur and a really good backup, if that's the case, in Dillon Gabriel. So for me, I am staying wherever my pick is, and I'm taking the best athlete on. So best athlete on the who's ever available, unless there's a tackle that I have ranked higher, which I don't know yet because I haven't delved into it too much. But I'm attacking skill guys, I'm attacking touch guys, and I'm attacking tackles. And I'm going to get some extra picks, try to get maybe an extra pick or extra couple picks in the second, third round. And I'm going to find a couple tackles and a couple skill guys to make this offense run a little bit better. Then I'm going to attack the offensive line through free agency, because the Browns need to win now, in my opinion. And I think offensive lineman is just like being a freshman in college. There's a bit of difference between a freshman lineman in college and a senior lineman in college. They're grown men at 23 years old. It's the same thing could be said about the NFL lineman. Right. So I want to get a couple veteran linemen at like that 27 to 30 range, 27 to 29 range, that are veterans I'm going to put a lot of money into that offensive line. Then I'm going to sign David Njoku, and I'm going to get him healthy, and I'm going to be in 12 personnel with those two guys. And then I'm going to sign a veteran receiver and make sure that Jerry Jeudy's the number 2, because now Jerry Jeudy is the number 2, is able to do what he has to do without the responsibility of being a number 1 guy. And I think he'll be very successful there. And then the only thing that would change that is if I just continue to watch Caleb Downs on film and he's available, I'm taking him, and then we'll go from there. So, but I'm sticking with the quarterbacks I have right now, because I think they've done enough, especially Shedeur Sanders. I think he's been outstanding and shown enough to at least get him in the mix. And then and if you're not a guy, he's got a year experience, they have to get some pieces around him to help him, because that's where they're struggling, both on the offensive line and skill. So that's how I'd attack it. But, my opinion means about nothing. So
Listen, I love this because I asked about the quarterback position, and I could tell you thought about this because you had a whole plan ready. You're like, hey, I'm not drafting no linemen, I'm drafting skill positions. So I got more than I bargained for, which I appreciate. I'm sure our listeners appreciate as well. Lance, I was gonna you brought up like that win mattering. How much does it matter, you think, for Kevin Stefanski? Because that's the biggest question is, does it erase some of the problems from this season that we've seen in terms of execution and some of the on-field things that have gone wrong? Can one game sort of sway, the change necessary to maybe allow him to keep his job if he's truly about to be on the outs here? What does it say about this team, though, that they've continued to play hard for Kevin, and what does that mean, I think, in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I learned this from my dad a long time ago. Never make any football decisions after a game or after a big win or a big loss because you're emotional. So everybody who says Kevin had to go because they lost a huge game or this week, he needs to stay. They were awesome this week. Those are knee-jerk emotional reactions, and those are hard not to make. And I'm not any different than anybody else. But as I sit back, I always say, all right, no knee-jerk reactions. My dad always taught me that. That always sticks with me in these types of situations. So that would be the first thing. But I will say this on behalf of Kevin Stefanski. I appreciate that he's always taken it upon himself and never put it on anybody else. That's hard to do as a head coach, especially when you're a struggling head coach. All of this is not his fault, but as a head coach, he knows that's his responsibility. That's why I didn't like the Bubba interview a couple weeks ago, just because he didn't own it, even though what he said was basically true. You got to eat those things sometimes, kind of coaching code. So I really appreciate it. But I will say this: a team that was 3-12, they certainly played hard the other day. And if you're going into your meetings with the owners and people like that about your job, that's the only thing you can say is that the guys on the field are playing extremely hard. And, they got to rebuild the offense and they got to retool that defense. And I think he can win here. I'm not, if I'm getting rid of them, I'm getting rid of everybody. But if I'm just getting rid of Kevin Stefanski, I wouldn't agree with that. I would be disappointed with that. So I'm getting rid of everybody, or I'm keeping everybody. I know that things have to happen when you're 3-12 or 4-12, whatever it is. I understand that how football works, but I thought his team played really, really hard the other day, and that's really hard to do. You can ask anybody who's ever coached when you're having a tough season to get your kids to play like that. That's hard to do. So credit to him and his staff and those guys out there. I don't know. I like Kevin Stefanski. I think he's a good football coach, and he didn't get dumb. He's got to figure out how to get his message through to these guys, and they got to get some more talent on offense.
I think that's well said. And we share an opinion, Lance, on what kind of needs to happen here. If it's all or nothing, in my opinion, too. I don't think it's fair that one guy gets blamed for the shortcomings of this team when there's a lot of bigger issues that go deeper than just like the on the field execution week after week. So I'm with you on that, and we can maybe explore that here coming up next week, depending on what happens with those decisions after this Bengals game. But before we wrap, I always like to give you at least the floor here for a minute or so. What stands out about the Bengals from week 1 to now? What are the Browns sort of up against here as they try to close out the season with another win and maybe make a bit of a statement, but also understanding it's a tough challenge against that Bengals offense in particular?
Well, Bengals got it rolling on offense. They always will, but this defense is made for that offense, and I've always believed that they have the ability. Now, the thing that it makes this really tough for this Bengals and Taylor's a guy that likes to get 5 out. If you look at his spacing, he likes to get 5 out all the time. Chase Brown's a really good tailback. They're decent up front this year, better than they've been. Obviously, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, all those guys, Uvashis, they're all really good players, but they like to get 5 out. So this could be a very big week for Myles Garrett. I'm not sure how they're thinking about it. Are they going to go all in and chip him all the time, attentive to detail? He's never done that. He's always had great success. Myles has always had great success against Cincinnati because he likes to get 5 out. And when you get 5 out, they're trusting on Burrow to beat the blitz. Well, that hasn't always worked with Myles. So that's the first thing. Defensively, they're okay. They have not played as hard as the Browns have. That's the one thing you can say about them after they, their season kind of went south. They've kind of, I don't want to say going through the motions, but, this type of team is dangerous because they're so skilled on offense. So you have to be careful. But for the Browns, they can definitely win. They should be preparing to win, go 1-0. and let's hope that Taylor tries to get all his guys out, and so Miles can have a big day.
Just real quick, yes or no, does Miles break the sack record here in Week 17?
Yes.
Or Week 18, sorry.
Yes, he does.
Okay. He's going yes. I will give my prediction on that later in the week. But we appreciate you coming to hang out. I always say this at the end of these conversations with Lance, but I hope you felt like you learned something from the breakdown of the plays, or just his opinion on something, and sort of some insight into, how these things kind of go, and running a team. Lance is awesome. I've appreciated him being part of this all season, so I hope you have as well. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And listen, you already live your team every day. Take it up a notch. Go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Browns and no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for $5 a month or $50 a year. Just go to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. Also like to remind you to check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you on Wednesday as we get you ready for Browns and Bengals. See you then, Cleveland.